Good morning. Welcome to the H.C. Wainwright Fifth Annual Ophthalmology Virtual Conference. For this session, we'll have a fireside chat with Dr. Jay Duker, the Chief Executive Officer of EyePoint Pharmaceuticals. Welcome.
Thank you, Yi. It's a pleasure to be here this morning.
Dr. Duker, we know that EyePoint recently reported that both phase 3 trials of DURAVYU, which are the Lugano and Lucia trials, have completed enrollment. Could you tell us whether both trials have enrolled treatment-naive as well as treatment-experienced patients, and will that potentially have an impact on the future data readout?
Well, yes, they did. In fact, both trials are essentially identical, which we believe gives us an advantage with respect to the FDA evaluating the results. And we do expect that the inclusion of treatment-naive wet age-related macular degeneration patients will be an advantage for several reasons. First of all, I'd like to remind the listeners that we did a very robust phase 2 trial of our drug, DURAVYU, in wet age-related macular degeneration in previously treated patients. This was a tough-to-treat population in the phase 2. On average, those patients had 10 injections normalized in the year leading into the trial. And in the United States, on average, patients get about 6 injections. So we got very few patients in that trial that had been treatment extended successfully out beyond 2 to 3 months. But we did really well. To remind the audience of the results, both treatment arms of DURAVYU, 2 milligrams and 3 milligrams, were essentially identical visually to the EYLEA on-label control. So the inclusion of naive patients, we believe, will give us even better results than we got in the phase 2. The reason is there's probably 20 to 25% of the wet AMD population that is fairly easy to treat. They can be treatment extended out to about 3-month intervals with virtually any drug. And we think our drug will do very well in that population. So we think automatically by including those patients in the pivotal trials that our results and our number of supplements should go down. Now, from a safety perspective in the phase 2, there were really no safety signals at all from either our drug or our insert. And of course, we've had no ocular or systemic SAEs secondary to our drug in any of the trials that we've run in over 190 patients. From a safety perspective, we wouldn't expect the naive patients to act any differently, certainly. And to remind everybody in the pivotal trials gets a monthly load of EYLEA. So by the time DURAVYU gets inserted at week 8, those patients aren't technically treatment naive anymore. They've already had a load of EYLEA. We also think this will potentially lead to a broader label. We would anticipate, if approved, our label should look something like DURAVYU is indicated in either naive or previously treated wet age-related macular degeneration after 3 injections of an anti-VEGF on a Q6-month basis. So again, we think the inclusion of treatment-naive patients is an advantage and will de-risk the program. And just to let you know, both trials have about a 75%, 25% ratio naive to previously treated.
Got it. So this is an ideal ratio, right? 75% versus 25.
Well, we think so. When you say ideal, we believe that is a good mix that allows the FDA to see how we also do in the naive population. We would expect that the previously treated patients would probably be similar to what we saw in the phase 2, relatively tough to treat. And, that makes sense because if you're a wet AMD patient and you're already treating extended out to 3 months and doing well, chances are you're not going to enroll in a trial that requires monthly visits. So we've again, another good thing about doing a phase two is we know our statistics, we know our standard deviation. We believe we found the optimal dosing of the drug, the optimal dose of the drug, and therefore we believe that 75-25 ratio gives us the best chance for success.
Got it. Thank you. Uh, can you talk about the rescue criteria for supplemental injections in the
Sure.
trials? And
Sure.
are the current rescue rates in line with your expectations?
So first of all, with respect to rescue or supplementation, this is a concept that has been present really since the start of sustained release therapy. And if you're looking at various clinical trials of sustained release therapies, you'll note that there's no set way to have your rescues delivered. Each sponsor and even various trials, it can differ. So that's an important concept. The FDA doesn't appear to mandate a fixed idea of how to supplement. So our supplement criteria came out of work that we did on the phase two. Once again, a big advantage to doing a phase two. What we discovered in the phase two, that there were certain supplement criteria, for example, new fluid without a change in vision, that we really didn't need to use in the phase three. And it makes sense. If your eye has stable vision but has new fluid, there's no reason to supplement. That eye isn't going to see any better from a supplement. And ultimately, that's the primary endpoint, visual acuity. So our supplement criteria became simple, which is loss of 5 letters of vision from best on study, associated with a 75 micron increase in fluid, CST, as measured in OCT, from best on study, and they have to be together. And we believe that that will not only protect patients from visual loss, which is critical, obviously, for the patient, but also for the result of our non-inferiority trial. And it's simple. It's easy for the physicians to remember. In addition, we had supplement criteria in the phase three that has to do with hemorrhage. We want doctors to supplement if there's a sight-threatening new hemorrhage due to wet AMD. When we evaluated the patients in the phase two trial in all 3 arms that were supplemented due to hemorrhage, there were 9 of them in total. What we discovered was 6 out of the 9 either didn't have a hemorrhage, or the hemorrhage wasn't from wet AMD, or it wasn't considered sight-threatening. So what we've done is added a criteria for the sites to take a picture of the hemorrhage and adjudicate it with a rescue monitor to see if the rescue monitor agrees that this is a sight-threatening hemorrhage. So it's simple. Those are the only 2 criteria that we have. And again, in the phase 2, we allowed physicians to rescue at their discretion. And 20% of the rescues in the phase 2 met no criteria at all. So that is another reason why we're optimistic that the supplemental rate in the pivotal trials will be less than what we saw in the phase 2. As for monitoring the supplemental rate, we believe that at this point, making public statements that include potential results, even masked results, may put us at risk with the agency.
Mm-hmm.
Really don't want to do that at this point because we feel like we are, to use a golf analogy, we're hitting it straight down the fairway right now and hitting it far, and we're in line to break par here. And so there really doesn't seem to be an advantage for us to take a risky shot right now.
Got it. Thank you for that. So I understand DuraView utilized the bioerodible Durasert E technology. Can you tell us how is it different from the Durasert technology used in currently commercialized products? And could the difference have an impact on DuraView's efficacy or safety profile?
Well, sure. So again, going back historically, the Durasert technology has been around for several decades and is in 4 FDA-approved products. But when you have a drug that is very soluble. Even if you admix that drug with a matrix to solidify it and sustained release it, if it's soluble, it's going to go away fast. So the first medications, APIs that were put into this system were highly soluble drugs, corticosteroid and ganciclovir. And as a result, to slow down the release, it was necessary to put a polyamide, essentially plastic inert shell, around the matrix, leaving pores to allow the drug to diffuse out through the pores. Vorolanib is not that soluble. So for wet AMD, we didn't need the polyamide shell, and we didn't want the polyamide shell. It wasn't necessary. And because polyamide, although inert, it hasn't caused problems, it doesn't go away. And if you really think about how long wet AMD patients live after their diagnosis, we didn't see any advantage to have these polyamide shells built up in the eye. So the bioerodible form, quite simply, is drug with matrix, but no polyamide shell. So the entire insert should be fully bioerodible. Now, I do want to add, Duracert E was designed so that the matrix holds the drug together and controls the release until the drug is essentially gone. And animal studies suggest that in humans, it should be completely gone from the inserts in about 9 months. The matrix is fully bioerodible and should go away, based on animal studies, in several more months. Mm-hmm. That was by design, because what you don't want is free drug particles floating inside the eye. Mm-hmm. At that point, you wouldn't control the drug release anymore, and you run the risk of those free drug particles actually blocking the vision, being visible to the patient and being visible to doctors. So we don't have that. We shouldn't have that. We've never had that. And again, in over 190 patients that we have complete follow-up on from the phase 1 and 3 phase 2 trials that we've run, we've had no patients report loss of vision due to the inserts. So overall, if you think about the proven track record of Duracert with the polyamide shell, we've actually taken away excipients. And so from a safety perspective, we think there really is no reason to believe that there would be a problem. We haven't seen a problem. And in animal trials, there hasn't been any safety issues, even with multiple frequent re-injections. So overall, the next generation Duracert E, the next generation refers to the higher payload. We think it will perform very, very well. And the evidence we've seen so far from a mass safety perspective would indicate that. I will add one more thing about our inserts. They are now 94% drug, only 6% matrix. Mm-hmm. And given each insert's only about 1/5000th of the vitreous cavity, when you do the math again, that a little nubbin of residual matrix that might be left after the drug is gone in 9 months or sooner really shouldn't be any kind of problem as it fully bioerodes. It doesn't break into pieces. It doesn't emulsify. There's no PEG in it. There's no PLGA in it. And so from a safety perspective, we're very comfortable with next generation Duracert E.
So as you said, the drug itself should go away in about 9 months. The matrix could take a little bit longer to completely disappear.
It should, yes.
So there shouldn't be any safety concern associated with Duracert E for redosing at 6 months, right?
No, and as I said, in animals, we've redosed multiple times, even at a shorter interval than 6 months, and found no safety concerns.
I see. Okay.
From the phase 1 and phase 2 studies we ran, we've had up to 3 inserts in about 80 eyes with no problems, no issues related to the number of inserts or inserts causing visual loss or be a problem. So the fact that they're 94% drug and there's 2 inserts with each injection, when you kind of do the math, you end up at a steady state every 6 months with a volume and a mass less than 3 inserts. So not a concern.
Got it. That's very helpful. Has the Data and Safety Monitoring Committee reviewed the mask data from both trials?
Yes, it has. And we did report that the Data Safety Monitoring Committee advised no changes in the protocol. from the first meeting of both trials. Now, that's important. And so our phase 3 was informed by our previous trials, especially the large phase 2 that we ran. And we've had no significant changes in the protocol, nor do we expect any. Now that we're fully enrolled, we don't expect any. And that's, again, a de-risking issue. Changing one's protocol in the midst of a pivotal trial does nothing but add risk to the program.
Yeah, yeah. Got it. So I understand Lugano is now expected to report top-line data in mid-2026 and Lucia in second half of 26. Could you remind us the primary endpoints of the trials and your expectations for the data readout based on existing clinical evidence of DURAVYU?
Sure. So yes, and again, I can't emphasize enough what a great accomplishment it was for not just EyePoint in our clinical team, but the sites and the doctors and the patients to get these two trials enrolled so rapidly. About 7 months, over 400 patients in each trial. It was very, very rapid enrollment, which again, I think speaks to the enthusiasm that the doctors and patients have for our drug. So again, the primary endpoint is a blended visual acuity endpoint at week 52 and week 56. So, if you do the simple math, allowing for some weeks to get the data together and confirm that it's right, we should have top line from the first trial sometime in the middle of next summer, less than a year from now. And because the second trial is identical, we would expect that if the results are positive from the first trial, they should be positive from the second as well. From an expectation perspective, I think it's simple. We hope and expect fully that we will be non-inferior to on-label Eylea, statistically and numerically. I wouldn't rule out that we possibly could be numerically and perhaps even statistically superior. Mm-hmm. What's the basis of that? Well, if you look at DAVIO 2, the patients who were not rescued in DAVIO 2 ended up with numerically better vision than the unrescued eyes in the control group. We may be able to replicate that in the phase 3. I also would point to the visual acuity results in our diabetic macular edema phase 2. 10-letter improvement in the unrescued eyes, which is superior to what you'd see from a naive population treated with Eylea alone. So there is some evidence that we might actually have numerical superiority to the control. Obviously, we don't need it. Statistical non-inferiority gives us our primary endpoint. We would expect safety to match what we've seen in the past. We have no evidence that there would be any difference in the safety perspective. And as I've said already, I think from the perspective of supplements, we would expect the supplementation rate to be down. And so that also leads to one of our important primary endpoints, or secondary endpoint rather, which is reduction in treatment burden against the control group. And so we believe we will be able to achieve that. So that's the expectations. And we're obviously very excited to be where we are today. And it's been an incredible journey of incredible execution and dedication by our team here. And we're really excited for next summer.
Yeah, that's very helpful. Has vorolanib been approved in any country in the world? And what are the available approaches to facilitate the regulatory pathway in the US for DURAVYU?
So interestingly, the whole history of vorolanib goes back to the same protein chemist who developed sunitinib. And the thought was that sunitinib, which was at the time being used or tested orally for kidney cancer, would accomplish the same thing, but with fewer off-target effects. And in the laboratory, that was true. And the company that was developing it decided instead of being the second one in for a relatively small indication, why not be the first one in for a big indication? And so they tested vorolanib orally for wet age-related macular degeneration. It went through phase 1 and phase 2, had very good efficacy as an oral drug. But of course, systemic TKIs and the doses used can have side effects, and it had hepatobiliary side effects, which limited its use, so it didn't get out of phase 2 as an oral drug. We have a partner in China, Beta Pharmaceuticals, which has the rights to vorolanib outside of the eye. And just recently in the past year, Beta got vorolanib orally approved in China for kidney cancer. That is the only approval worldwide of vorolanib. It's a new drug entity in the United States, which gives us some advantages in obviously potential advantages if we're approved with respect to patent protection and things like that, which we think is also of value. Vorolanib, again, well tested, known safety in the eye, and we believe it has some real advantages as a sustained release API.
Got it. How do you expect DURAVYU to be used in real-world practice among existing wet AMD therapies, including Lucentis and Eylea, both of which have biosimilar drugs on the market, and also Vabysmo, Susvimo, as well as off-label Avastin? And on that front, Avastin could become an on-label drug for AMD later this month.
So all of the drugs that you just mentioned all have the same mechanism of action. Mm-hmm. They are relatively large molecules that block the ligand extracellularly. Obviously, there's differences and there's longevity differences. And I think everybody's well aware of how well Vabysmo has done with the promise of 1 or 2 more weeks of extension for patients between injections. We think that speaks very well for a drug that we think, based on the phase 2, should, in the majority of wet AMD eyes, be able to go 6 months or longer between injections. Now, the way it's going to get used, again, I think we can speculate. I'm in a position to know the retina community pretty well. And so I think that if the phase 2 data holds, you're going to see probably the same general 3 ways that retina specialists approach wet AMD. The primary is treat and extend. And I think you could see a treat and extend protocol with patients who are already being treated with a ligand blocker, adding DURAVYU, and that extending out the intervals to see how long the patient goes. And remember, in that situation, if I've got a patient I have to treat every 4 weeks with Eylea, and I add a DURAVYU, and I don't see fluid again for 4 months. So even though it's not 6 months, I can then give the patient another Eylea, and then at 6 months, give them another DURAVYU. And all of a sudden, you're talking about 2 to 3 shots a year instead of 12 shots a year. So that's a win. That's a win for everybody. Mm-hmm. Plus, the doctor is going to be able to take advantage of 2 MOAs. We're used to chronic disease all over the body, including the eye, approaching chronic disease with more than 1 MOA. We don't do that right now for wet AMD or diabetic macular edema. And we think our drug gives the opportunity to add a second MOA, also with what I like to call an insurance policy. You know, if you've got an elderly patient who you've tried to treat and extend out 3 to 4 months, that's a long time to go between visits. And if they get sick or they go on vacation or they miss a visit, it's hard for doctors to get them back in. I think doctors will like the peace of mind of having a sustained release insert in the eye, knowing that they're still getting drug even if they miss a visit. The other advantages that we have, which probably will lead to even more uptake, is we potentially will be antifibrotic. Mm-hmm. And we've, as you may know, we've had some preclinical data to suggest that we're neuroprotective. And if we can show either or both of those in the pivotal trial, I think that would make it a situation where doctors would use us without hesitation if we're approved. So I think that the integration of a second MOA that's sustained release is something that doctors are really looking forward to now. And I believe that given positive data, our uptake will be rapid.
Can you talk about your expectation on how receptive the payers will be for 6 months TKI treatment for wet AMD?
Well, given that we've done a lot of work already on that, we've had an early product development group working for 2 years to work with retina specialists, not just the KOLs, but the retina community in general, working with payers and working with administrators of various retina groups, both private equity and non-private equity, large and small, to really find out what it is they want and how can we best position DuraView to give them what they want. The payers have been very receptive. They just have that the idea of a new MOA with sustained release and the ability to take at least some patients out longer between injections. Because remember, the burden isn't just the cost of the drug. The burden's the visit, the burden's the OCT, the burden's the cost of injection. So there's other peripheral charges around visits that payers would like to see more efficiency if possible. And we hope to provide that.
Got it. What is your current manufacturing capacity for DuraView?
So current at the moment, we manufacture and are capable of manufacturing thousands of inserts here in Watertown in our main office. As we've announced and made people aware that we built a manufacturing facility that is about a 45-minute drive west of here in Northbridge, Massachusetts. This is a 41,000 square foot facility built to our specifications, controlled by us, that is at the present time only going to be manufacturing DuraView for wet AMD and DME. That is facilities up and running. We're currently doing registration batches there. And at the current capacity, potential capacity with the 8 clean rooms, we would estimate that we can make hundreds of thousands of inserts there a year, which should be adequate not only for the United States, but should we choose to launch out of the United States there as well. Now, we also have capacity in that site to expand, not just within the current footprint and add to it. And so in the future, we have the potential to make about 1 million inserts a year there. Obviously, that's not where we made the inserts that we're currently using in study. And we don't believe we're going to have to do any kind of human bridging study between it. And we are actively preparing for NDA pre-approval inspection and eventual commercial success.
Got it. Thank you. Switching to the indication of diabetic macular edema, can you talk about your plan for this indication and whether you expect DuraView to show comparable performance in these patients?
So from the plan's perspective, we had an end-of-phase 2 meeting with the FDA in the middle of the summer. We've had some back and forth exchanges with them and expect to see the final written minutes shortly. And once we've fully evaluated that, we're going to talk publicly about what our plans are. The meeting went very well, and we've really reached alignment on virtually everything that we wanted to with respect to the plans. And as we've said already, though, the first patient in DME is a 2026 event. And so while we're doing some of the early work now to get ready for manufacturing and hiring some new clinical positions, et cetera, first patient in will be next year. With respect to how we're going to do, I am really excited about our phase 2 Verona study. The first thing to look at, if you look at the results here, is our higher dose arm, 2.7 milligrams, which is what we're using in the wet AMD trials and what we expect to go to market with, did incredibly well. And it did it fast. If you look at the 4-week visual acuity results against Eylea in this population where everybody was active with DME, everybody was wet, within 4 weeks, we were already much better than Eylea, both anatomically and visually. And in the eyes that were not rescued, it was over 10 letters improvement with about 120 microns improvement of fluid, much better than what Eylea showed in this trial. So we think the odds of us being non-inferior is very high. And we also think that we may be able to achieve this type of visual acuity improvement and anatomic improvement faster than Eylea, which would be a huge advantage in the marketplace.
Got it. Does the company currently have enough cash to complete the pivotal trials in wet AMD, obtain regulatory approval, and commercially launch it?
The first part, yes. We have a cash runway that is into 2027, about approximately a year beyond data. So cash runway for that is good. We have talked about all the current NDA prep that we're doing, the manufacturing prep that we're doing, getting prepared for the DME trial. That's all within that cash. The DME trial is not, and obviously commercialization is not in that either. But I'm going to state the obvious. We're optimistic that if we achieve the type of results we fully expect to achieve from the phase 3 trial, the value creation that will come to our investors in the position that we will be in, I don't think we'll have any problem through multiple avenues to raising enough cash to be able to successfully launch the drug in the United States ourselves.
Yeah, got it. Dr. Duker, we are getting to the end of the chat. Do you have any closing remarks to the audience?
Well, I again want to thank you, Yi, for having me on, and just say how excited we are here at EyePoint to be in the position that we're in. The first patient was dosed with our drug only 4.5 years ago, and here we are after a robust phase 2 wet AMD trial, having fully enrolled very rapidly 2 phase 3 trials, and expecting the results in less than a year. We're in a really good position.
Thank you very much. Best wishes.